I came back to the village and contracted 100 acres of mountain orchard. The citrus seedlings had just been planted. My neighbor Walter drove in more than 4,000 free-range chickens. The flock scratched up the seed bed, turning up all the subsoil. He stood at the foot of the hill, leaning on a bamboo pole,
and yelled up that these chickens were full of energy.
But I didn't argue, and every evening, he played cards at the town entrance, while I scattered high-protein dried bugs in the back valley. On the third day, not a single one of his chickens came back when he called. That evening, I was checking the drip irrigation pipe connections when I heard a flapping sound at the foot of the hill, and then the chickens went wild. They clucked and scattered everywhere. All 4,000 plus chickens rushed up the slope like a floodgate had opened, surging up from the bottom, and in a flash they swarmed into the seedbed. They scratched with their claws, pecking with their beaks. On the steep slope, new seedlings were ripped out by the roots. On the broken ends still clung water droplets from when they were just planted. A few were dragged half a meter away, their tips all ground up. Walter stood at the foot of the hill, leaning on his bamboo pole, looking up with his neck craned. His voice was loud and clear, as if afraid someone might not hear. He stomped the bamboo pole on the ground
and said these chickens sure were lively, adding that he was a bit tight on cash lately. The chicken coop's so dirty you can't even step in. So let me keep them in your orchard for a few days.
Which made me tighten my grip on the bamboo tip in my hand. I told Mr. Walsh that the seedlings were just planted yesterday.
But he told me not to worry about how much chickens could eat, saying they would peck a few bugs and weeds, which I should consider as free fertilizing and pest control, and asked if I wasn't a college grad, since the books called us eco-farming.
And before I could say a word,
he grabbed his pole and took off. He shouted that when the chickens laid eggs, he would bring me a few to try.
But he was already gone. I picked up a broken seedling from the dirt. The break was dry, caked with yellow mud. Not one seedling on the slope was left whole. The seedbed was torn up, the subsoil showing. Shallow roots, pecked clean, a stark white patch. The broken stem stabbed into my palm. Seedling cost $18,000, land preparation $4,000, and base fertilizer $2,400. My parents worked down south, their life savings, all poured into this. My phone rang. It was Dad. I couldn't tell him the truth. I just forced out that it was fine, and the next morning,
the village chief Mr. Evans came up to the orchard, puffing on his pipe.
He stood at the top of the slope, and a sea of free-range chickens flooded his view. He nearly dropped his pipe.
Walter's a real piece of work. Someone like Chloe. Don't confront him head-on. Last year, his sheep got into Arthur's cornfield. They ate all the tasseling seedlings. Arthur went to the community center to argue his case, but he was extorted for $100 in medical fees.
His son Wyatt is just as bad.
You're a young girl. You haven't even settled in the village yet. It'll be even harder. If all else fails, go over and offer him a cigarette. Say some soft words. If he saves face, maybe this will blow over. Go over and offer a cigarette. Say some soft words.
Then I'll never be able to hold my head up around here again. That evening, I called my childhood friend Liam. He runs a farm supply store in town. After I told him the whole story, he was silent on the phone for a long time.
When he spoke again, his voice was very low. Hard way won't work. Try the soft way. Come see me at the store tomorrow.
The next day, Liam and I met at his farm supply store. Fertilizer bags were stacked in his store. The air smelled of feed. He pulled a woven bag from under the shelf and untied the opening. The tan granules were plump and dry, with a sweet, fishy smell. I grabbed a handful. It was slightly sticky.
High-protein dried bugs used in farms. Protein content 40%. Free-range chickens have one weakness: greed. Feed them the best live food every day, and they'll see you as their mountain. Once they've had this, anything else, even corn, will taste like nothing. Walter plays cards at the threshing ground every afternoon. You time it to scatter the feed for the chickens. Don't let Walter know yet. Start with small amounts, then increase. Stick with it for 30 days.
Okay, I'll transfer the money to you later. Liam helped me load the dried bugs onto the utility cart. That afternoon at 5 o'clock, the sun was leaning against the ridge. I parked the cart at the foot of the hill. Carrying a plastic bucket, I turned to the back valley. The seedlings pecked by chickens were still tilted in place. I didn't touch them. I crouched down, grabbed some dried bugs, and scattered them. The granules fell into the grass, rolling densely downhill. A few bold roosters came first to investigate. They tilted their heads and pecked once. Then the flock surged in, flapping their wings, claws scratching the ground, kicking up dust half a foot high. The dried bugs were gone in an instant. The chickens still lingered around, digging in the dirt with their claws. I stood up, holding the empty bucket in one hand, opening my phone's notes with the other. Day 1, dried bugs cost $30. Estimated losses, $14,000. In the following days, the notes app was filled with dense rows of numbers. Day 2, $34. Day 5, $52. Day 8, $106. The high-protein dried bugs I was feeding the chickens went from one bucket to a whole bag. On day 8, before I even arrived, the flock was already crowding on that flat ground, stretching their necks and calling. Their feathers getting shinier and shinier, their combs so red they looked like they were about to drip blood.
Every evening, Walter strolls by with his hands behind his back. College kids sure know how to raise chickens. Look how my chickens are in your yard. They're so full of life. I'll send you more eggs later, you'll still come out ahead.
I didn't argue with him. Day 10. The slope at the foot of the hill was getting loose from all the pecking. You'd sink half a shoe into it when you stepped. If they keep pecking like this, when the rainy season hits, all the soil will slide off the slope. I bought wooden stakes and perimeter fence from town. It took me 3 days to put up the fence around the orchard. I wrapped 3 layers of gauze around my hands so the blisters wouldn't keep leaking. I managed to keep the chickens out, but the next morning, a big hole was ripped in the fence. 5 wooden stakes had been pried out. The chickens were squeezing in through the gap. I kept quiet. That afternoon I drove the stakes back in and fixed the fence. At night I sat behind the yard watching the mobile security feed. I checked the orchard every 2 minutes, from 10 o'clock till the early hours. Just past 3 in the morning, near the orchard edge, a figure crept up. The figure was prying at the fence. I shone my heavy-duty flashlight over. A few strands of yellow hair. It was Walter's son, Wyatt. He squinted at me in the light. Neither of us said a word. A few bugs flew through the beam.
He suddenly cursed something.
Turned and walked into the dark. He slammed his crowbar onto the ground. The next morning, under the gaze of half the locals, I hammered all the wooden stakes back in. I put big rocks at the base. The way I swung that sledgehammer was no different from any strong man's. Wyatt stood by watching, his eyes narrowed to slits. But he didn't dare say a thing.
Day 12. The gossip at the town square was loud. If that Chloe girl would just settle down a bit, she could have gotten a $30,000 dowry. She turned down $30,000 just to grow some fruit trees. And now look at her. She's too chicken to stand up to Walter and his son. She doesn't even dare to breathe.
I walked by, they saw me just then. They all shut up. I didn't say anything either. I just nodded at them and kept working. My phone's memo just updated. Current loss, $16,000. But most of the chickens are only eating dried bugs now.
Day 15. Walter was getting confused.
What's going on with these chickens? They won't even eat the newly planted corn. This is really weird. They used to fight over this stuff, but now they won't touch it.
He was chatting with me, his eyes full of calculation. There are too many bugs in the orchard. They're stuffed, so no need to eat when they get back.
Even so, it shouldn't be like this.
He walked back on his own, still thinking. What he can't figure out, I can. Day 20. Walter came to the orchard to chase the chickens. He brought a longer wooden pole this time. He whistled at the bottom of the slope. The whistle sounded 3 times. The chickens poked their heads out of the woods, looked around, then ducked back in. He ran back and forth on the slope, his pants cuffs covered in burrs and broken grass. He fell twice. His face was covered in bloody scratches from the tall grass. Dozens of chickens flew over Walter's head, clucking loudly. Chicken feathers were everywhere. Walter was about to get up but choked on the feathers and fell back down. Martha was picking wild vegetables nearby and couldn't help laughing.
Walter, what's up with your chickens? Why don't they listen to you anymore?
A few locals stifled their laughter. Walter was red from his face to his neck. His veins throbbed twice. An hour later, most of the chickens were chased down the hill. A few hundred darted into the bushes. They refused to come out, only showing the tips of their combs.
Even the chickens are revolting.
The locals held back their laughs. They continued with their work. I stood in the shed watching, until he carried a bamboo pole, cursing all the way down. Then I pulled my phone out of my pocket, and wrote in my memo, Day 20. Dried bugs expense total, $1,244. Day 22. At daybreak. Walter stood at the gate of my yard. He started shouting.
Goddamn chicken thief. You dare steal from my house? He was in his 50s. His face was bright red. Now he looked like a ridiculous monkey.
Someone opened a window and called to him.
Walter, what? Raising the dead this early?
Which scumbag stole my chickens? 800 of them.
800. That's a huge loss. The neighbor wanted to laugh but held it in.
Walter glared at the guy fiercely. Then he turned and stared at me.
Chloe, be honest with me. Did your orchard get robbed? Our chickens only hide in your orchard.
I got the hint. His chickens weren't stolen, but are hiding in my orchard and refuse to go back with him. In that case, how about you call the police for me, Mr. Walsh? If Walter really dares to call the cops, he doesn't need to make snide remarks right in front of me. He stood at my gate for ages.
I'll get to the bottom of it sooner or later. I watched him walk away.
And stood at the door with a smile. In a few more days, his chickens, more and more of them won't go back with him. Day 25. The number of chickens willing to go back with Walter dropped by another 700. He threw all dignity out the window. He went straight to Mr. Evans to complain.
Chloe must have drugged my chickens. Why else won't they come with me?
Mr. Evans, worn down by his nagging, had no choice but to come to me.
Chloe, be straight with me. What's really going on with Walter's chickens?
Mr. Evans, the dried bugs came from Liam's shop. The chickens love him, what can I do? If he thinks there's a problem, tell him to check it himself. Mr. Evans was taken aback. He furrowed his brow and didn't push it. He looked at me, some things you can't say, and don't need to say. Mr. Evans walked out with his hands behind his back. From that day on, the gossip under the big tree at the town entrance changed its tune.
When Walter drove his chickens into someone else's orchard, he never thought this day would come.
Chickens, they go to whoever feeds them. Chloe goes to the valley every day to dump dried bugs. The chickens know which side their bread is buttered. His chicken coop is just an empty shell now, not a feather left. They're all laying eggs in her orchard.
Ha ha ha. I heard he went and complained to Mr. Evans, said she drugged him. What could Mr. Evans say? You drove your own chickens up to her land.
Now look, they've already gone over to her. If he doesn't sell, he won't even get a feather. But if he sells, where's his pride?
Hearing all this, a sudden impulse hit me. An orchard is perfect for integrated farming. Chickens eat bugs and their droppings fertilize the soil, making the trees grow better. That spiel Walter fed me to con me actually made some sense, but the saplings had only been planted 2 days ago. A flock of chickens rushing in to scratch. That wasn't fertilizing anything. That was tearing up the seedlings, but now it's different. The saplings have taken root. The chickens have bonded to this place. Now it's my turn to turn the tables, turn his own logic against his chickens. I called Liam, and told him my plan. Liam was silent for a beat on the phone. Then he chuckled. Walter only has 2 options now, either sell me his chickens at a low price,
Or watch the chickens party on your mountain, and he won't get a single feather out of it.
With Liam's approval, I started building a chicken coop at the edge of the orchard. Pine posts for the foundation, asbestos tiles for the roof, waterers and feeders lined up in a row.
Walter came straight over. Chloe, you're trying to steal my chickens.
Mr. Walsh, if your chickens are willing to go back with you, I'm not gonna stop them. I've already built this coop. It's not like I can't buy chickens elsewhere.
You.
Walter was furious, veins popping on his temples. Of course he knew the chickens wouldn't follow him back. For days, he'd been messing around at the foot of the mountain. As soon as the chickens saw his bamboo pole, they'd dart into the woods. Faster than from a weasel, Walter gave me an angry glare, then turned and walked down the mountain. Halfway down, his foot slipped. Almost took a spill. The next few days, Walter didn't come to see me. He didn't even come to chase the chickens. Until the 6th day, he came and knocked on my door.
Chloe. Since you want to keep these chickens, I can let you have them. We're all fellow villagers here, I'll give you a discount.
What, Mr. Walsh, you want to sell them cheap?
That's right, cheap. $30 a chicken. For $4,000, just give me $100,000.
The best I can do is $20,000.
$20,000?
Mr. Walsh, your chickens only eat my feed now. You blew your whistle till it broke, snapped your bamboo pole, and went back with your face all scratched up. Your chicken coop is empty now. Besides, these chickens, the market price is at most $20 each.
You little snake. You're so greedy.
Mr. Walsh, your chickens in my orchard, I'm not losing out. They eat pests, loosen soil, fertilize, saving me money on pesticides. I'm in no rush. I watched Walter get ready to cook with firewood. Walter stood there, thinking for a long time.
Fine, $20,000 it is. I went to the bank, withdrew $20,000 in cash, laid it on the table,
And slid the contract across. He counted the money 3 times before signing. He stuffed the contract and cash into his canvas bag. Before leaving, he shot me a nasty glare. I watched Walter on his phone, jotting down another entry in his notes. Purchased 4,000 free-range chickens. Expenditure, $20,000. Orchard loss, about $18,000. Market value of chickens, about $60,000. Expenses for dried bugs, etc., about $2,000. Profit from this stage, about $20,000. After typing the last word, outside the window, 4,000 chickens were crammed onto the shady slope, scrambling for food. Day 4 of taking over the flock. The phone rang.
Chloe, something's wrong. Liam's voice was urgent and low. The feed mill upstream is down for maintenance. Plus, the heavy rains lately washed out the bridge to the mountain. The high-protein dried bugs are out of stock. My store's stock will only last you 2 more days. Best case, a week to restock.
Got it. I watched the chickens on the hillside. They were circling the feeder. They didn't know in 2 days those troughs would be empty. Once the dried bugs ran out, starving, they'd start scratching the ground again, digging up the newly sprouted citrus saplings. Those saplings couldn't take another hit. I hopped on the utility cart and headed out of town. At the town feed store, dried bugs were sold out across the county. Even the chicken farms didn't have enough to feed their own. The grain stations had tons of corn kernels, plenty and cheap, but useless. These birds got spoiled on dried bugs. When the utility cart's battery hit red, I happened to pass by an abandoned lumber mill in the next town. One half of the iron gate was rusted. There were mountains of rotten bark piled in the yard. The sawdust had fermented, and the sour stench hit me from a distance. I slammed on the brakes. The utility cart left a skid mark on the dirt road. The rotten bark at the base of the wall had been composting for years. It had turned dark brown. I kicked it away. Underneath, it was damp and warm. White grubs. Black cutworms, crowded together tightly. When hit by light, they burrowed deep. I settled with the boss for 2 packs of cigarettes. I got all this rotten bark. He was going to pay someone to clear it anyway. I also made a trip to the oil mill in town. The peanut bran was piled up in a corner of the warehouse. The leftover after pressing oil. The mill found it took up space. With the money I saved from hauling the bark, I loaded a few hundred pounds of peanut bran onto the utility cart. Back at the orchard, Arthur and Martha were already waiting. I had asked them to help out temporarily. We dug a shallow pit in the shady northern side. We lined the bottom with rotten bark and wood chips and packed it down. Spread a layer of peanut bran over it. The yellowish-white crumbs fell onto the dark brown bark. Like a layer of coarse salt. I poured 2 buckets of rice washing water over it. The water soaked into the bottom layer. The bark hissed. I also collected from around the orchard some rotten fruits with insect holes. I crushed them and threw them in.
Arthur picked a handful of dry grass and spread it on top.
I pulled out the shade net from the utility cart. The 2 of us, one on each end, pulled it open and covered it. Just then, Walter strolled over.
A girl who's read a lot is really something else. And you can raise chickens with a pile of rotten bark.
He stood by the pit, hands on his hips, as if talking to himself.
But clearly saying it for us to hear. I figure your 4,000 chickens will end up dead or sick. You won't even have time to cry.
Arthur was about to retort immediately, but I gave him a look to stop him.
He forced the words back down. Martha also turned her face away, too lazy to respond. None of us paid him any attention. Walter grunted and walked away. After that, he came by for a stroll for several days in a row, hoping to see how I'd kill the chickens by feeding them. 3 days later, I lifted the shade net in front of him. The fermented sour smell mixed with peanut bran and that sweet wine-like aroma rushed up. I lifted the top layer of dry grass and leaves, and the white grubs had multiplied many times. Each one was nice and plump. They wriggled through the rotten bark and wood chips. The cutworms were all packed at the bottom, more than double compared to a week ago. I scooped up a shovelful, half grubs, half wood chips, carried it to an open space in the orchard, and dumped it with a whoosh. The swarm scattered instantly, like a handful of black sesame seeds spilled on the ground. First a rooster darted over, then another one, then a whole flock, as flapping, clucking, and scratching sounds came from all around, and the flock converged on the clearing like a tide. Walter stood by my fermentation tank, and I could feel the whole hillside moving, his face grim, while Arthur leaned on his hoe, watching the chickens scramble at his feet, smacking his lips.
Well, these chickens didn't starve after all. They look even livelier.
Walter grunted, turning and walking away, as Arthur, Martha, and I kept feeding the chickens. The 4,000 chickens that used to scratch everywhere, after eating the fermented feed, started dozing under the trees, eyes half closed. Their combs were bright red and eyes shining, and when someone walked by, they'd look up, then tuck their heads back under their wings. 5 days later, Liam brought me new high-protein dried bugs, and seeing these glossy chickens, he couldn't help grabbing a net to catch one, lifting and weighing it in his hand, saying,
These chickens are solid, and when the town poultry farm buys a ton, do you know how much high-protein feed costs?
I know.
You brought back rotten bark using just 2 packs of cigarettes, added a few buckets of rice washing water, and made something way better than theirs. You won't need to borrow money for feed from me anymore.
As the pickup drove off, I went back inside and opened the account book, and on a new page, I wrote, developed live insect fermentation farming method, feed cost reduced by 50%, chickens gained weight significantly, and orchard pest rate dropped simultaneously. Note, chickens are full, lying still, and not scratching the soil, keeping the sapling roots safe. While outside the window, 4,000 chickens lay in the sunset, so quiet that you could only hear the wind blowing, leaves rustling, and occasional clucks. Day 9 morning, I found the valve clogged. During my rounds, I noticed the drip pressure was off. I followed the pipe downstream. I stopped at the main valve pit at the foot of the hill. Someone pried the manhole cover open. There were fresh cement chips around the edge. I squatted down to check. Cement and gravel packed the valve and jammed it solid, already bone dry. They knew where the valve was, and they knew how to block it. They used pre-mixed wet cement. Someone who knew what they were doing did this. I stood up. I didn't act like some fresh grad whining or cursing. I called Liam. That same night, a diesel pump and hundreds of feet of industrial hose ran to the creek in the ravine. We bypassed the blocked valve and pumped water from further downstream into the main drip irrigation line.
Water problem solved. I bought from the village store 2 bottles of liquor and a carton of cigarettes.
Arthur had helped me a lot, but ever since I came back to the village, this was my first formal visit to his place. Arthur, you built the chicken coop and dug the pond all for free. I set the liquor and cigarettes on the table. Today, I came to discuss something serious. My orchard's grown. Collecting eggs, cleaning coops, mixing feed, checking pipes, I can't handle it all by myself. I'd like you and Mrs. Cheng to help out. Wages are $30 a day, paid in cash. Lunch included. Arthur didn't move. And I also want to ask you to put out feelers about who else in the village is reliable and good at work. Could you ask around for me? I looked at him. Arthur put his pipe back in his mouth. The ember glowed once in the twilight. He looked at me. Long pause.
Chloe, you're not asking me to be a hired hand. You want me to step on Walter's face again. I'll round up some people for you tomorrow morning.
The next morning, Arthur brought 4 people with him. Martha was leading the way. Following behind were George, Thomas, Arthur, and Ben. Arthur tucked his pipe into his belt.
Chloe, I've brought everyone you asked for.
I prepared paper pay stubs in advance. I gave one to each of them. Daily pay is $30, cash in hand. Lunch is provided. Cash in hand.
Which slope do we start on?
And just like that, the orchard became lively. Arthur is in charge of mixing feed and checking pipes. Martha leads the team to collect eggs and clean the coops. On the first day, Martha did the cooking.
Hearty stew, 2 bread rolls per person.
3 days later, the gossip under the big tree at the town entrance changed.
Arthur is at Chloe's orchard. $30 a day, cash in hand. Lunch is provided. All the hearty stew you can eat.
On the evening of the 7th day, they finished work. Arthur was sitting under the big tree at the town entrance. A few elders gathered around to listen.
Those chickens, compared to when Walter had them, have gotten more than 1 size fatter. Chloe knows how to mix the feed right. Fermented live feed. The chickens eat it, gain weight, and don't get sick. And Walter? He glanced down the town road.
There wasn't a flicker of emotion in his eyes. Walter's courtyard gate was tightly shut. Weeds had grown through the cracks in the stone.
He's at home drinking alone. His chicken coop is clean now, not a single feather left.
That gate was eerily quiet in the twilight. A second-floor window opened a crack, then it closed again. Arthur's right. Walter's been too quiet these days. Ever since we started paying fixed wages at the orchard, he hasn't even shown his face. His gate stays shut all day. Sometimes a crack in the second-floor window, but I know he's watching. Wyatt, ever since that time he tried to cut the perimeter fence, and I caught him with my flashlight, hasn't been out at night either. This quiet isn't him giving up. It's him figuring out his next move. I went to town to pick up feed. While there, I stopped by the kennel on the edge of town, and got 2 black German shepherds. Then I swung by Liam's shop and picked up 4 solar-powered infrared cameras. Back at the orchard, Arthur was squatting under the grain shed, sharpening a knife. He looked up and saw me leading 2 big black dogs out of the truck bed.
And froze mid-stroke. You actually hired security guards for the orchard?
Yeah. I wrapped the leash around my hand. If Wyatt dares to sneak in at night, these 2 will chase him till he's naked. Arthur stared at the dogs for a moment, then helped me drive 2 thick iron stakes on each side of the perimeter gate. We chained the dogs to the stakes. The 2 dogs lay down, resting their chins on their paws, ears turned toward the orchard. Then I carried a ladder and mounted the 4 cameras high up in the trees at the 4 corners of the orchard. Cameras facing outward, infrared night vision, and the feed linked to my phone. After checking the image quality, I switched screens and added a new note in my memo. Purchased 2 black German shepherds, 4 solar-powered infrared cameras. Expenses, $840. Note, defense system upgrade. Outside, it was completely dark. The 2 German shepherds lay by the perimeter gate, their ears slowly swiveling in the dark. July days are blazing hot. No rain in 5 days. No wind at night either. That night, at 1:30 in the morning, my phone rang. An alarm from the monitor. The screen popped open. On camera 4, 3 shadowy figures were creeping over from the abandoned quarry west of the orchard. Infrared turned everything grayish-white. They moved slowly, but they knew where they were going. No mistaking the one in front, Wyatt. He carried a plastic bucket.
Torches strapped to his back.
2 strangers followed behind, hunched over. Muffled voices from the receiver.
Wyatt's actually gonna do it. Once the gas is down, and the wind picks up, the whole mountain goes up.
Shut the hell up. Because of that bitch, my dad can't hold his head up in the village. Isn't she the one who used dried bugs to steal our chickens? Today, I'm turning this whole mountain into a dead mountain. Poor.
Wyatt dumped the gasoline into my orchard. He flicked the lighter. Lit the torch. I put on my jacket, grabbed the heavy-duty flashlight from behind the door and a crowbar, slipped my phone into my pocket, and headed to the orchard. On the security footage, the torches were already blazing. Inside the perimeter fence, 2 German shepherds stood up, ears forward, shoulders low. A low growl rumbled from deep in their throats. Wyatt brought the torch closer to the gasoline, then stopped suddenly.
And looked up into the darkness. He heard a growl.
What's that sound? Nothing, right?
The second growl was deeper. 2 German shepherds burst silently from the orchard.
Dogs.
The 2 German shepherds charged into the middle of the 3 men, tackled one, and chased and knocked down another. Wyatt stumbled back 3 steps, hit a plastic barrel, and rolled into the gasoline. The torch fell nearby.
He snapped too.
He scrambled to put out the fire, afraid of getting burned. I pushed open the gate,
Turned on the flashlight.
and the beam pinned him in the face. The other 2 thugs scrambled frantically into the darkness toward the quarry. Wyatt tried to run too, but a German shepherd grabbed his pants. He lost his footing and collapsed onto the grassy slope. I kicked the torch away, and it landed in the wet grass and didn't catch. I walked over and kicked the gas barrel into the drain ditch. Wyatt, you brought gasoline to my orchard in the middle of the night, trying to see how many years you'd get for arson. Police lights lit up half the village. As Richard Evans hurried over, still wearing his coat, Wyatt had already been shoved into the police car. The plastic bucket and that bundle of cloth strips were bagged as evidence, right there in the flashing lights.
Early the next morning,
Someone was pounding on the courtyard gate. It stopped after a few knocks. Then a dull thud. Someone plopped down on the doorstep. Walter sat on the doorstep. His face was red. He reeked of last night's booze.
Chloe, I'm begging you. Wyatt, he just made a stupid mistake. If you let him go to jail, his life will be ruined.
I turned and picked up a tangerine from the table. I stood just inside the threshold, slowly peeling it. Mr. Walsh, back then, when your chickens tore up all my saplings on the hill, did you ever stop to think that those saplings were what my parents saved up by working on the assembly line for 20 years? That's for the court to decide. I'm not signing any forgiveness letter. I stood up, went back inside and closed the door. After a long while, the person on the doorstep slowly got up. Wyatt was charged with attempted arson and sentenced to a detention center. Walter never came knocking on my door again. Red alert for heavy rain in early August. I made 3 calls right away. 2,000 sandbags, 5 truckloads of gravel. Need them delivered by tonight. Ordered 3 more pumps. Told everyone to work overtime starting tonight. Double pay. Mountain orchards can't take drought or flooding. When a flash flood comes, if there's nowhere for the water to go, it'll wash the seedlings away. By evening, over a dozen people were helping me out. Arthur took 4 guys to the orchard. They cleaned out the main drainage ditches on the east and west sides, laid gravel at the bottom, used sandbags to reinforce the slopes, and deepened them from half a meter to 1.2. Martha and the father-daughter team drove 4,000 chickens into the reinforced coop on the highest ground. We set up 2 layers of windbreak netting. We flattened the roof and welded steel cables on. I put on my raincoat and checked the drainage ditches every half hour. When the rain was coming down hardest in the wee hours, a section of the west ditch started caving in, dirt sliding off the walls. Muddy water spilled over the edges. It flowed toward the seedlings. Arthur, stumbling through the mud, rushed down the slope. He took one look, turned and plunged into waist-deep muddy water, bracing the collapsing wall with his shoulder. Thomas jumped in too, then jumped in. The women hauled sandbags and passed them down the slope hand over hand. No one backed down. Lightning ripped across the sky. On the embankment at the foot of the mountain stood a figure in a tattered raincoat. Walter's chicken coop was already gone. He just stood there, waiting for my orchard to drown too. As dawn approached, the villagers and I made it through the storm together. The wind died down, and then the rain stopped too. The floodwater in the canal finally started to calm down. The rainwater hadn't fully drained yet, but the canal walls weren't going to break again. I slumped down in the mud. My raincoat had 3 rips. My hands were covered in blood. Arthur, Martha, Thomas, and Ben, we sat on the canal bank, leaning on each other. The mud on our faces had cracked into fine lines. After a while, Arthur started laughing, and the others joined in too. A just cause finds support. I finally realized how true those words were. All 4,000 of my free-range chickens made it. The citrus saplings were still standing in clumps on the hillside. Some were tilted, but their roots were still in the soil. Walter was still standing on the terrace at the foot of the hill, muttering something bitterly under his breath. His raincoat had protected him for a while, but in the end, the rain left him drenched to the bone. He turned and headed back. Back home, there were piles of dead chickens waiting to be disposed of. 3 days after the disaster, I paid everyone their wages, and gave each person a small cash bonus. I brought out 50 cases of free-range eggs from cold storage, picked a few hundred pounds of early-season oranges, loaded a utility cart full and drove it to the community center. Richard Evans was tallying the disaster victim list. He saw what was in the cart and stopped writing.
Chloe, what's this?
A donation. For the elderly and families in need who were hit hard. He looked at me. And didn't refuse. That evening, under the big tree at the town entrance, several rows of people were sitting to cool off.
Arthur was puffing on a pipe and told the story of jumping into the muddy water during the storm. Thomas chimed in. Without Boss Chloe's orchard, we'd have been washed away. That's right.
Our town got off the lightest this time. It's just her 100 acres.
A few fan waves and no one called her that anymore. Instead of that Chloe girl, they all called her Boss Chloe. Across the foot of the mountain, Walter's courtyard gate was still closed. Less than 2 weeks after the typhoon, the heat came back. The sun blazed from morning till night. Steam rose from the soil on the slopes. During my rounds, I noticed something wrong. Several young citrus trees on the south side had leaves that were curling and turning yellow. I flipped them over, and there was a dense layer of rusty spider mites and aphids. Then I dug into the soil around the roots and found several gray-white cutworms gnawing on the tender root hairs. The typhoon brought more than just rain. Eggs blown in from neighboring fields hit this hot, humid weather and hatched like crazy. Arthur crouched beside me, turning over a leaf, squashing a few spider mites with his fingers. His brow furrowed into a deep frown.
Three-pronged attack, spider mites, aphids, cutworms. Chloe, this can't wait. Back in the day, when the town grew fruit trees and faced this, they'd hit it with dimethoate, douse it with dichlorvos, and knock it out in 2 days. I couldn't spray.
Thinking of the 4,000 chickens in the orchard and the fish fry I just put in the reservoir, so I stood up, picking the chewed leaves off the branches. Once I spray, it'll wash into the stream. The bugs die, but the fish die too. Then my oranges will be labeled toxic for good. Arthur stopped trying to persuade me. He knew what I meant. That afternoon, when I rode out of town on my utility cart, I saw Walter in a new outfit, sitting on his second-floor balcony with a plate of sunflower seeds
and an old telescope set up beside him. Has that girl read herself stupid? Can't even afford pesticides. Just wait and see, those saplings on the slope will be kindling soon.
His voice was just loud enough to reach my ears. I didn't stop, and that night when I got back, I stayed up reading papers and emailed a professor at the university's agriculture college. Early the next morning, I drove the utility cart into town, not to the pesticide store. The next evening, I pedaled my utility cart back from town, no pesticides in the cart, just a few large cardboard boxes stacked up. On top were bundles of seedling grass with roots. Arthur lifted the lid off one box, froze for a solid 3 seconds. The box was crawling with tiny bugs. Predatory mites, the size of a pinhead, wriggling through the wheat bran alongside Asian lady beetles. Half the box was larvae, scurrying fast across the cardboard partitions.
No spraying, just releasing bugs.
Releasing bugs. I lifted the boxes off the cart. Predatory mites eat spider mites. One mite can kill over a dozen a day. Lady beetles eat aphids. I crouched down and untied the grass bundles. Ageratum and alfalfa, roots still wrapped in damp soil. Weeds? Ageratum, its scent repels several pests. Alfalfa attracts natural enemies of cutworms, ground beetles, and ichneumon wasps. We don't kill bugs, we invite their enemies in. He glanced at me, then handed the seedlings to Martha. Arthur dug holes, Martha buried the roots, Thomas carried water from the cistern, and gave each plant a good soak. After planting the last one, the sky had turned dark. For the toughest cutworms, I had another trick. We set up a big pot in the kitchen, dumped in half a pot of chinaberries and dried chili peppers, filled it with water and boiled it. The spicy steam made Martha cough. Arthur pushed all the windows open. After an hour of simmering, we ladled the brown-red liquid into buckets. Mixed with water, we poured it around the citrus roots, drenching one tree, moving 2 steps, drenching the next. The mixture slowly seeped into the soil.
This actually works.
Non-toxic, but cutworms can't stand the smell. They'll crawl out of the ground on their own.
Where to? Right up to the surface.
I stood up and brushed the dirt off my knees. The chickens are waiting. Walter's been sitting on the balcony for 5 days. Every afternoon, right on time, he'd show up in new clothes, with sunflower seeds and binoculars. Locals passing by would ask what he was up to.
He pointed at my slope and said, just waiting for a show. Watching them seedlings wither and die. That young girl didn't buy pesticides, she released bugs instead. Like bugs to actually work? Bookworm, she's lost her mind.
By the evening of the 5th day, he was still sitting there. On the morning of day 6, I patrolled the orchard to the south slope. I turned over a leaf that had been the most curled and dry before. The back was completely clean. A few shriveled spider mite eggshells remained. Predatory mites were around the eggshells, crawling lazily. The spider mites? Gone. I turned over a few more leaves. Aphids? Also gone. Ladybugs were lazily buzzing among the branches. Every single one was fat and happy. The ageratum I planted had bloomed pale purple. The purple alfalfa attracted swarms of ground beetles and ichneumon wasps. They were burrowing in and out near the root zone, chasing cutworm larvae until they had nowhere to hide. Occasionally, a free-range chicken would scurry from under the trees, scratching open the loose soil, and peck out a fat cutworm. The chicken tossed its head back and gulped it down. All the curled, yellowing leaves had spread out, and were turning green again. Arthur followed behind me, picked a leaf, touched it, and said nothing. When we wrapped up for the day, I stood on the hillside and glanced over at Walter's house across the way. He was still on the balcony, his binoculars just lowered, clutched in his hands. Then he spun around suddenly, slamming the binoculars on the table. The sound of chair legs scraping across tiles was grating even across half a mountain. He stormed inside. The balcony door was slammed shut. I went back inside and opened the Notes app on my phone. I started a new entry, Biological Pest Control. Expenditure, $300. Spider mites, zeroed out. Aphids, zeroed out. Cutworms, wiped out by natural enemies. A highly resilient eco-orchard system. After typing the last word, outside the window, the orange seedlings on the mountain rustled in the evening breeze. This system had taken root in these mountains. Mites eat insects. Chickens eat cutworms. Manure fertilizes the trees. Trees sustain everyone. Don't need to buy a thing from anyone anymore. Just after the insect plague, the drought came. Then it dried up again in late August. Not a single drop of rain for over 20 days straight. The stream in the ravine went from a gush to a trickle, and from a trickle to just a damp spot in the rocks. The drip irrigation pipe went from spraying to dripping. I checked the reservoir. The water level dropped a notch every day. The moss at the bottom has bleached gray-white. The chickens don't fight over feed anymore. Even when I pour fermented live bugs into the trough, they peck a couple times and then retreat back into the shade. The new citrus shoots are drooping. Leaves curl into tight tubes. The thermometer hangs on the window frame, the red line nearing 102 degrees. Arthur is squatting on the cracked slope.
Half of Mr. Lee's corn on the other side of the hill has withered from drought. This ravine now only flows for 2 hours a day, and the water doesn't even reach our pond before the quarry upstream takes it.
I called the town water supply station. They said it's a full-scale drought relief, and the agricultural water quota has been exhausted. My 100 acres of hillside is too large. I have to figure something out on my own. After hanging up, I stood by the reservoir. The remaining water at the bottom is just a thin layer. The soil under my feet crunches when I step. The reservoir won't last till the weekend. That afternoon, I was adjusting the water pump by the pool. I heard footsteps behind me. More than one person. Walter was standing at the other end of the pool. Next to him was a middle-aged man with a leather briefcase, gold-rimmed glasses, a slight potbelly. The way he looked at the orchard like he was sizing up a slab of meat. Chloe.
This is Mr. Brooks. He handles monopoly procurement in the town. Walter's voice was loud and clear. He's quite the philanthropist.
Heard our village got hit by drought, so he's here to help. Mr. Brooks didn't beat around the bush.
He pulled a contract from his briefcase and handed it to me.
The water reservoir at the quarry behind the mountain is mine, connected to an underground river. It has water year-round. Sign this contract, and I'll supply your orchard with water every day till the autumn harvest.
I flipped through 2 pages. Then I closed the 3rd page. Oranges go for $1 at the market, and you're taking them all for 24 cents. You're buying free-range chickens at the caged price of $3 each. Is this what you call help?
Chloe, right now, he's the only one who can get you water. If you say no, within a week, all your saplings on the mountain will dry up and wither. Your free-range chickens will die of thirst and disease. By then, even if you go begging, all this stuff of yours won't be worth a dime.
3 days. 3 days from now, even if you beg me, the price will drop by another 20%.
He turned and walked toward the foot of the mountain. Walter followed a few steps and glanced back at me. He grinned, his meaning clear. Your water's in my hands. Let's see how long you can hold out. I just stood by the edge of the reservoir, watching the mountain's reflection in the water. Staying silent. Just sign that contract. Oranges at 36 cents a pound, all in. Free-range chickens at $4 each. Oranges are $1 on the market. Chickens are over $20. He just flips them. He marks it up several times. I can't even cover my costs. All these months of hard work. From the first scoop of dried bugs, to the fermentation pond, to the drainage ditches, to the 4,000 chickens, all of it, just working for him for free. If I don't sign, the water won't last through the weekend. I took the pebbles in my hand, and tossed them one by one into the pond. The water level kept dropping. In the evening, Arthur was squatting on the hillside, a pipe clamped between his teeth. The ember at the tip flickered in the dusk. Before him lay the pale, dry slope.
Chloe, there's something I need to tell you. As for this stretch of hills, don't be fooled by all the trees and grass on top. Underneath, it's all rock. The village drilled a few wells before. Dig down 30 feet or so, you hit water. But that's not real water. It seeps from cracks in the rock, a little pumping, and it's gone in 3 to 5 days. If you want your 100 acres to get enough water, you'd have to drill through that granite layer. Only a heavy rig that goes 600 feet deep can chew through it. The whole setup runs over $10,000. And you'd need a professional survey team. No one would take that risk.
I stood beside him. Without a word, I quietly opened the Notes app on my phone. I scrolled through it. I've got less than $10,000 in working capital. Drilling a deep water well, heavy drilling rig, deep well pump and water diversion pipe. I'm short at least $6,000. I turned off the screen. I dialed Liam's number. Liam, can you lend me $6,000? Help me contact the drilling crew in town. I need one that can drill 200 meters through the granite layer. That kind of heavy equipment.
Chloe, you know what drilling into granite means? Gambling. What if we drill 200 meters and hit nothing? Or not enough? That money's just buried in the ground. I've heard about Mr. Brooks. We could just make less this year. Swallow our pride, get through this, then we'll figure it out.
No way. If I swallow my pride today, everyone in this village will walk all over me from now on. Mr. Brooks is lowballing us because of the drought. Tomorrow he'll find another excuse. If I hand over my lifeline, this orchard will never truly be mine.
What do you want to do?
A heavy drilling rig, 200 meters, drill through the granite layer beneath our feet. I need to take control of my own lifeline. Liam didn't say another word.
I heard him spark a cigarette. Money will hit your account tomorrow morning. Drilling crew? I'll pull some strings tonight. We'll head into the mountains tomorrow night.
The money arrived early the next morning. Liam transferred $6,000. He added that the drill was already arranged. That night, the second I put down my phone, Arthur and Martha were already standing at the courtyard gate. They came on their own. Behind them were Thomas, Ben, and Sam with his wife.
Not a single orchard worker was missing. Chloe heard that Mr. Brooks was using the drought to lowball prices. Walter teamed up with outsiders to bully us villagers. We can't just swallow this insult. For the next few days, we'll work for free. Whatever you say, we'll do.
Right, whatever you say. I didn't hold back with them.
Dig the ponds on the north slope. We pump up the deep groundwater, but it can't be used directly. I remember clearly from my college notes. That water is ice cold year-round. If it goes straight into the drip irrigation system, the citrus roots will suffer frost damage. And the free-range chickens will get diarrhea. We need to build layered ponds between the well and the orchard, layer by layer, one level after another, letting the water warm up and evaporate in the sun. Then let the plants filter it. Only then can it go into the drip irrigation pipes. I spread the blueprint on a rock. The rocky patch at the foot of the north slope, 3 stone-lined pools at staggered heights. Arthur took one look, grabbed his shovel and headed off. Under the sun, the sound of shovels turning soil echoed from morning till night. Arthur dug the pond bottoms. Thomas, Arthur, and Ben moved stones to build the walls. Sam and his wife pushed wheelbarrows to haul coarse gravel from the stream. I laid the first layer of coarse gravel in the ponds, as the base, mineral rocks in the middle, and charcoal sprinkled on top. Martha led a few women to bring cattails and canna lilies. They planted them in clumps along the pool edges, roots buried in the wet mud, leaves drooping in the scorching sun. After watering them in, they slowly perked up. When the 3 pools were finished, dusk had fallen. The highest inlet connected to the well, the lowest outlet to the main drip irrigation pipe. Water would cascade down level by level, heated, purified, and exposed to the sun in the pools. When it flowed out, it was no longer icy. Bedrock water was ready. Dusk. In the distance, a dull engine rumbles on the winding mountain road. A heavy track-mounted drilling rig tows a long body. It rounds the last curve, dim headlights cut through the twilight. I got Liam to set it up for night entry. Avoiding the village road, we come straight up from the base of the mountain, keeping clear of Walter's window. The rig comes to a stop. The operator jumps down. He's an old driller, about 50. His face is lined with grease stains. He squats at the drilling spot, stamps the ground with his foot, and looks up at the surrounding hills.
It's granite underneath, 200 meters not shallow.
Can you do it?
I can, but no promises on water. If we hit dead rock halfway, it's all for nothing. You still in?
Do it. The bit bites into the ground. The whole track rig shudders. A deep roar spreads through the valley. Arthur sticks his pipe in his mouth, but doesn't light it, just staring at the hole. Martha stands by the pit, rubbing her hands. Sam pushes the wheelbarrow aside. 30-meter drill rods connect one after another. Only gray rock dust comes out. At 50 meters, the dust gets finer, like ground lime. The wind kicks it up. Arthur squats and pinches a bit. He frowns. 100 meters. The drill's rumble drops a whole tone, gnawing into the granite. The operator watches the pressure gauge. A bead of sweat slides from under his cap. I stand by the rig, both hands covered in mud. Dried dirt is embedded under my nails. The gray dust piles into a little hill. Not a single drop. Arthur takes the unlit pipe from his mouth, and holds it in his palm. The drill keeps gnawing. 120 meters. The operator tugs at his cap brim, not looking at us. On the 3rd day, the sun rises as usual. Nearly half of the new citrus shoots are completely drooping. The leaves curl into thin tubes. They fade from green to withered yellow. The chickens huddle under the shade of the trees. Their calls are weak. The reservoir is running dry. Mr. Brooks and Walter show up on time. Mr. Brooks glances up the hillside a couple times. After checking the wilted saplings, he turns to me.
3 days are up. I hear you're drilling a well in granite. Dream on. The contract can only be signed at 20% of market price now. Sign it, and I'll call the water truck right away.
I don't even look at them. I walk straight to the drill rig. How's it looking?
The granite is too hard. We gotta switch to a diamond bit. Even with the upgrade, no guarantee we'll hit water. If we hit dead rock, we won't get a penny back. Keep drilling?
Just sign it now. Any later, every sapling on the hill will be dead. Behind me, Walter's voice chases after me.
Drill. I squeeze the word out through my teeth. Even if I have to drill through this granite, I will see water. The operator gives me a look. He tugs at his cap brim.
He spins around and yells, "Diamond bit, now."
After changing the drill bit, the drill's pitch changed. A sharp cutting sound tore deep into the ground. 190 meters. The whole rig shuddered violently. The operator slammed the pressure gauge. The needle shot to the red line, then bounced back. The drill let out a deep, dull hum.
We're through. We've drilled through the granite layer. He yanked down the lifting lever.
Then, a murky column of water shot out of the hole, carrying rock chips and gravel, like a white dragon bursting into the sky. A 10-meter-high fountain erupted under the blazing sun, refracting into a rainbow.
Arthur ripped off his straw hat
and hurled it to the ground. He jumped and danced on the rock pile. Arthur, Ben, and Thomas hugged. Martha grabbed Sam's wife, laughing and crying. The whole North Slope cheered. My legs gave way. I collapsed onto the gravel. The freezing water fell from above, soaking me head to toe. That water was ice cold, carrying the sweetness from 200 meters down. Mr. Brooks stood in the shade, his face dark and grim. Walter stood beside him, face dark too. Not a word, staring blankly at me and the fresh groundwater.
The groundwater is pumped into the terraced pools. It flows down step by step through the 3 pools. Coarse sand and mineral rocks filter out the grit and suspended solids. The water goes from murky to clear. In the second pool, the roots of cattails and canna lilies absorb mineral impurities. Their tiny fallen petals float on the surface. The third pool has been baking in the sun all day. The surface water is warm to the touch. The 10-degree groundwater warms up to around 20.
Not freezing anymore.
I squat by the outlet of the third pool
and cup a handful of water.
It's not cold, but warm, with the smell of sunshine. I open the main drip irrigation valve, and water flows through the pipes up the hillside. The drip irrigation risers light up one after another. The sound of trickling water spreads from the foot to the top of the hill. The cracked soil sizzles the moment it gets wet. Fine bubbles rise from the cracks in the soil. Citrus leaves curled into tubes slowly unfurl in the water. Starting from the leaf margin, they turn green again bit by bit toward the center. The chickens hear the water and get up from the shade of the trees.
1, 2.
Then a whole flock. They flutter toward the risers, crowding around the drippers to drink. Their clucking is deafening. I stand up and wipe the mud and water off my face. Mr. Brooks, your so-called timely help is just you lowballing me when I'm dying of thirst. My dignity got me a spring that never dries up. I look at them, open my phone's camera and take a picture. This is my new memo.
After the drought, the weather finally got back to normal. A few autumn rains, and the citrus saplings all over the mountains soaked up plenty of water. New shoots kept sprouting one after another, covering the whole hillside with fresh green. I planted a circle of thorns and firethorn around the orchard. Thorn bushes grow fast, firethorn is dense, forming a natural hedge. The chickens pecked at them a few times, found them prickly, and just stuck to wandering around the orchard. I also threw grass carp and crucian carp fry into the mountain stream reservoir. The fish eat chicken manure scraps and fallen fruit, and what they excrete gets broken down by microbes, turning into plankton that feeds the fish again. Arthur squatted by the reservoir and watched for a long time.
Chickens eat bugs, their manure fertilizes the trees, fish eat chicken manure and fallen fruit. Your orchard is now feeding itself.
Almost, but the fallen leaves and pruned branches pile up at the foot of the slope, rot and feed the fermentation tank. He clicked his tongue, and shook his head. Liam came to check it out once, stood on the hillside and looked around. He took in the mountain full of citrus saplings, the chickens under the trees, the fish in the reservoir, and the purple ageratum flowers blooming between the rows.
Chloe, do you know what this is called? It's not forest farming. It's a crop livestock cycle. It makes way more than just planting fruit trees.
I looked at the lush mountain and said nothing, thinking back to when I first leased it, those mangled saplings, roots broken, sticking to dry, yellow soil, roots pointing to the sky all over the slope, not a single one intact. Back then I crouched in the dirt, picked up a broken seedling, and said just 3 words to my father, "It's fine," and now it's still fine. This mountain has come back to life. In autumn, the first fruit showed up. The first batch of late ripening citrus was cut from the branches. The peel was a bright, glossy orange-red. I peeled one open. The flesh was sweet and just melted in your mouth.
Arthur stood under the tree and broke off half. After eating, he sucked his fingers. These oranges are the real deal.
We gather 800 or 900 free-range eggs a day. The shells are thick. Crack one into a bowl. The white is thick and rich. The yolk is a vibrant red.
These eggs are amazing.
Around the Harvest Festival, I created a short video account called Chloe's Eco Orchard. The first video was a flock of free-range chickens, scratching around under the citrus trees. 2 black German shepherds were on patrol on the hillside. The second video showed citrus freshly picked off the tree, with stems and leaves still attached. I filmed myself peeling it for a full 30 seconds. I zoomed into HD. You could see the oil mist coming off the peel. The third video was cracking an egg. The orange-red yolk dropped into the bowl. Round and plump. The white was so thick it stretched into strands. The caption was just one sentence: pesticide-free, free-range in the orchard. Packed in shockproof foam egg cartons, shipped in breathable cardboard boxes. Orders came flying in like snowflakes. Health-conscious city people saw the stretchy egg white and the orange-red yolk, and without hesitation, ordered directly. The first batch sold out in 3 days. The retail price was 30% higher than what we sold to distributors. Arthur squatted in the packing shed, folding boxes. As he folded, he burst out laughing.
This stuff sells way faster than at the market.
On the 5th day of sales, people started requesting refunds in the back end. 1 or 2, then a batch of refunds. All the reasons were oddly the same. They said they saw comments saying it's unsafe. I opened the video's comment section. Dozens of nasty comments were lined up at the top. Sprayed with pesticides, don't buy ones ripened with hormones, they're bad for you.
This Chloe, whatever.
I'm from her town. This woman is all about money, she's completely ruthless. The soil and water in the mountains are ruined by pesticides. All these accounts are newly registered, no avatar, no posts, just a name, a long string of numbers as their ID. But the comments were coming in back-to-back and the likes were suspiciously high. Someone was organizing behind the scenes.
Martha was standing in the shipping shed,
staring at the table piled with return forms and opened cardboard boxes. Her eyes got red.
She wiped her eyes with her sleeve. Chloe, our stuff is clean and honest, and it's been ruined by their venomous tongues. What do we do now?
I scrolled back to those nasty comments and read them again. Then I couldn't help but smirk. Martha, go get Arthur and the others. I set down my phone. No shipping today. Start a live stream.
Start a live stream and fight back.
Not to fight back, but to let the truth slap them hard in the face. I set my phone up on the tripod in front of the chicken coop. I open the live stream. No filter. I aim the camera straight at the mountain stream reservoir. You'll see for yourselves. The orchard's irrigation source. Live grass carp and crucian carp from the mountain stream. They are swishing their tails underwater. I pan the camera down. The free-range chickens are pecking for food under the citrus trees. I walk up to a tree. I pick a bright yellow fruit. I peel it open with my hands. A fine mist of citrus oil sprays out. The segments are plump and clear. I take a big bite with the peel on. Juice drips down the corner of my mouth. If there were harmful pesticides, the grass carp wouldn't survive in this stream. If the citrus were artificially ripened, I wouldn't dare eat it with the peel. The comments start flooding in. I walk over to the chicken coop. I pick up 4 freshly laid eggs from the straw nest. Arthur hands me a glass bowl. I crack them open right there. The orange-red yolks sit plump and full at the bottom. The egg whites are thick. They stretch into long strands when I lift them with chopsticks. Hormone-treated chickens can't lay eggs like this. The livestream viewers jump from hundreds to tens of thousands. The chat goes wild. People who cancelled are regretting it now. They're begging me to drop the link. These are real free-range eggs. I told them today's stock is limited, first come, first serve. In less than 2 hours, all the day's stock sold out. I gained 100,000 new followers. 3 days after the live stream, a refrigerated truck rolled into the village. Richard Evans led Mr. Lee to the edge of the orchard. He was the biggest farm produce wholesaler in town, specializing in high-end green supply chains. He walked straight into the orchard, grabbed a hen, weighed it in his hand, checked the claws and tips, then looked at the feed trough and water tank.
Boss Chloe, I'm taking this batch.
As soon as he said that, a sputtering utility cart came from the village road. Walter was pedaling it, the bed packed with dozens of sickly, skinny chickens. Their combs were pale and limp. He parked the cart sideways in front of the refrigerated truck, grinning from ear to ear.
Mr. Lee, these are free-range, organic grain-fed chickens.
Mr. Lee looked down at the chickens huddled in the cage. He frowned a bit. I had Arthur push over a bamboo cage. Inside, the free-range chickens had glossy feathers, red combs and strong bodies. Mr. Lee's gaze shifted from Walter's cart to my bamboo cage. He casually grabbed a chicken from the bamboo cage, weighed it, checked its claws and comb color, put it back and grabbed another. He looked them all over, then turned to Walter.
Keep your chickens to yourself.
Walter's face froze. Boss Lee turned to me. Wiped his hands clean. in front of the whole village watching, loudly.
Boss Chloe, this shipment of yours. I'll take all the eggs, oranges, and the fish from the pond. I'll add 20% on top of the wholesale price. Let's sign the contract now.
He pulled the contract out of his briefcase. Crouched by the low table in front of the chicken coop, he scribbled a few lines, pushed it over, and I signed it. Then he pulled a stack of cash from his briefcase, slapped it into my palm. This is the deposit. Walter pushed his beat-up utility cart. Standing at the edge of the crowd, in the cargo bed, dozens of sick chickens huddled in cages. No one even glanced at him as he turned and left with his cart. The wheels bounced twice on the dirt road. His figure grew smaller and smaller. At the year-end settlement, I flipped to the last page of the memo. $0. Revenue minus costs, drew a line underneath, net profit $42,000. I sat at the desk staring at that number for a long time, then switched apps, and dialed Dad's number. The phone rang. I told him about this year's profit. There was a long silence on the other end.
Good job.
Mom's voice cut in from the side.
A little choked up. Your hardship in the mountains this past half year wasn't for nothing.
I hung up. I opened the ledger to a new page, and wrote on the first line. Next year, add honeybees and black goats, interplant herbal medicine and forage grass, and build a mountain eco-orchard system. After spring began, Walter got ideas. He scraped together money and bought over 100 chicks, and copied me on his own land, planting dozens of citrus trees. But he didn't know how to select breeds or raise seedlings, couldn't mix fermented feed, and even less knew how to sell online. After months of struggle, the chickens got skinny or died, and the citrus saplings got bugs he didn't even recognize. By the time he noticed, the leaves were already eaten up. The afternoon he came to find me, I was squatting by the beehives checking on them. He stood outside the fence, and didn't say a word for a long time.
Chloe, how about you teach me how to do it?
I glanced at him, closed the hive lid, and stood up. I don't have any deep grudge against Walter, he just lives in his own world. He thinks getting ahead is all about bullying. I taught him the techniques. From chick breeding selection to fermented live bug feed, to orchard intercropping and disease prevention. I even helped him get set up with a buyer in town. I got him on their list. Walter studied for a week. On the evening of the 8th day, he crouched by his chicken coop door. He stared at the buckets of live bug feed meant to ferment. Rice washing water, peanut bran, rotten bark. He turned and went inside. The next day, what he brought back from town was cheap bran and rotten cabbage leaves. He mixed them into the feed trough.
Chickens don't know the difference anyway.
After a month of cutting corners, his chickens started getting diarrhea. First just a few, then a whole bunch, and the citrus seedlings got bugs. He thought it was the soil not fertile enough and rushed to apply chemical fertilizer. After one round, the bugs didn't die. All the new shoots curled up. He crouched at my yard gate, his face ashen.
Chloe, the methods you taught me are flawed. My chickens are all sick. And the seedlings have bugs.
I gently closed the lid of the air pump. I turned and looked at him. The methods I taught you, how many days did you use them? Walter's mouth opened and closed. He stood in the yard, without a word, turned around and left. I never reached out to him again. 2 years later, my orchard expanded. We added honeybees and black goats, and herbal medicine cultivation. We also intercropped forage grass between the citrus rows. Goats eat grass, bees collect nectar and pollinate, and trees bear fruit. The visitors from town stood on the hillside, pointed at the lush green slope and asked, "Whose place is this?" Martha was carrying egg crates downhill. Without even looking up, she said in a tone as if stating something obvious,
Boss Chloe.
And of course, I am that boss Chloe.